The second those courtroom doors creaked open, it was as if time itself hesitated. Diddy walked in slowly, his trademark confidence replaced by a heavy burden that dragged at every step. His dark-tailored suit did little to mask the fatigue etched into his face. Eyes hollow, jaw clenched, a man visibly weighed down by the ghost of his past. The benches were crowded, every seat taken by reporters, spectators, and faces from another chapter of his life. Their murmurs followed him like shadows as he made his way to the defense table. But he didn't look at them. Not today. Today wasn't about recognition. Today was about endurance. He sat, folding his hands tightly, and for a fleeting moment his gaze climbed to the enormous clock above the judge's bench. The ticking sounded louder than anything else in the room. Each second struck like a reminder this could be his last day outside prison walls. When the bailiff finally called a court to order, silence swept across the gallery, but even then, the tension hung thick, suffocating, as if the walls themselves had drawn closer, desperate to witness history unfold. Before we go deeper into this extraordinary moment, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you'll never miss powerful stories like this one. Now, back to what happened. Diddy released a long, deliberate breath, his eyes shifting briefly to the side door, the door the judge would soon walk through. His legs shook under the table, the only crack in the mask he was trying to hold together. Outside, cameras were waiting for the exact second his composure gave way. The second he became the headline they had already written for him. But inside, this was far beyond public image. This was a battle for his very future, for the possibility of living without chains of constant watch. His lawyer leaned close, whispering words meant to steady him, but they hardly landed. Diddy's focus was pinned on that unbearable stillness before the storm, the kind of stillness that only comes before something irreversible. The benches creaked as restless bodies shifted, anticipation clawing at everyone. A cough rang out from the back, loud in the suffocating tension, drawing sharp glances. But Diddy didn't move. His eyes stayed forward, locked, until the faint metallic snap of the judge's door handle cut through the silence like a gunshot. The door began to swing open, and every breath in the room froze in unison. Everything he had planned to say, every word he had practiced, every emotion he had sworn to keep buried, suddenly it all surged within him, threatening to spill out. He thought he was ready. He told himself he was ready. But readiness felt like a fragile lie in that moment. The reckoning had arrived. The judge entered from the side door, his black robes flowing as he moved with a slow, deliberate rhythm toward the bench. The atmosphere shifted instantly. People leaned forward unconsciously, others straightened their backs, bracing themselves for the gravity of what was about to unfold. The judge's eyes didn't wander to the gallery. He didn't look at the attorneys. He didn't even glance at Diddy. His gaze was fixed squarely on the papers in his hand, turning each page with a calm that somehow made the tension unbearable. Diddy's fingers pressed hard into the wooden table, knuckles turning white as his mind raced through the speech he had repeated countless times. 100 rehearsals, 1,000 imagined outcomes. This was his chance to convince the world he wasn't the villain they believed him to be. But watching the judge lower himself into that seat, a cold doubt slithered through him. Did his words even matter anymore? The sharp crack of the gavel rang once, slicing through the whispers and pinning the room in silence. The judge cleared his throat, leaning back just slightly, his deep voice carrying easily across the chamber. "Proceed," he said. A single word. But for Diddy, it was the swing of a door he could never step back through. He stood slowly, the folds of his jacket falling neatly into place, but his hands betrayed him. They shook, restless, fingers twitching in the air as though grasping for something, anything, to keep him steady. He stepped toward the podium, and for the first time, his eyes lifted toward the gallery. The burst of camera flashes forced him to squint, but he didn't pause. He knew by the time this hearing ended, those images would already be circulating. His face, his expression, every flicker of emotion frozen in time. The microphone crackled faintly as he leaned closer. "Your Honor," he began, his tone calm but unwavering. "I'm here today because I believe. No, because I know I am not defined by the worst moments of my life." His words lingered, pulling a mixture of reactions, some doubtful, others curious. He pressed on, his voice gaining momentum as he spoke of the years consumed by reflection, the family he longed for, the countless nights where sleep was replaced by questions about freedom. The judge sat motionless, his silence more unnerving than any reprimand. Diddy felt the weight of the room, the judgment hanging above him like a storm cloud ready to break. Yet he kept speaking, determined to make each syllable strike like a hammer against steel. His fingers curled tighter around the podium's edges, gripping as though the wood itself could anchor him. His voice dropped lower, laced with a gravity that made the entire courtroom lean closer. Every single day I've lived with one thought: what I could have done differently, how I could have been a better man. His tone wasn't bitter. It was raw, carrying the kind of honesty that carved through silence. In the front row, familiar faces sat frozen. His sister clutched a wrinkled tissue, eyes glistening. An old friend, the one who had known him long before the headlines and scandals, stared down at the floor, unable to meet his gaze. A lump caught in Diddy's throat, but he forced the words through. I'm not standing here asking for pity. I'm asking for the chance to show that I am more than my lowest days. A camera shutter snapped from the back, sharp in the quiet, but he didn't turn. The prosecutor scribbled notes, unmoved. Diddy didn't need his approval. This was about reaching the one man who held the power to shape his future. I've seen what prison does to men, he said, his voice tightening on the final word. I've seen it twist them, harden them, strip away the pieces they thought they'd never lose. But it's also given me time to face myself, to rebuild what I once destroyed. A faint murmur stirred in the gallery, but it dissolved instantly when Diddy lifted his head. His eyes locked onto the judges, not with arrogance, but with a desperate sincerity. Your Honor, this may be the last time I ever stand before you. After today, I might not get another chance. All I ask is that you see me not as a headline, not as a statistic, but as a man. The judge didn't move, didn't blink, just met him with that same impenetrable stare. And that silence, that unbearable, suffocating silence, pressed down harder than any words could. But Diddy refused to look away. This was his fight, and he would not surrender first. His breath faltered briefly, but he steadied, pressing both palms flat on the podium as if to draw strength from it. His eyes swept across the room, taking in every detail: the attorneys, the rows of strangers, the judge, memorizing it as if burning it into memory. I know there are people here who believe I deserve the harshest punishment imaginable, he said, voice low yet piercing. And maybe, in their eyes, they are right. He shifted forward, narrowing the distance between himself and the bench. But I'm asking you to see that I am not the same man who first walked into this nightmare. I've changed, and all I'm asking for is a chance to prove it. The harsh glare of the fluorescent lights carved deep shadows across his face, exposing every flicker of pain. I've lost more than words can carry, he said, his voice steady but edged with sorrow. I've lost friends. I've lost trust. I've lost years I will never reclaim. But what I still have, the one thing no sentence has stripped from me, is a will to do better if I'm ever given the chance. Somewhere in the gallery, a chair creaked, but he didn't flinch. His words landed harder now, deliberate and precise. I'm not standing here pretending I'm innocent. I made mistakes. I own them. I carry them like a weight I'll never set down. But the question isn't whether I deserve punishment. The question is whether I deserve to be erased. His gaze swept to the back of the room where a few loyal faces sat stiff with fear and hope, caught between praying for mercy and bracing for devastation. Judge, I'm asking you to see me as I am now, not the version splashed across old headlines. I'm not a story. I'm not a symbol. I'm flesh, blood, and breath, and I want to live long enough to make things right. The courtroom hung still, silence pressing in from every wall. Even the clerk's hands froze above the keyboard, her fingers hovering, unwilling to break the spell. Diddy's voice softened, but the grip it had on the room only tightened. Do you know what the hardest part of this has been? Not the rumors, not the shame. It's waking up every day knowing the man I used to be is the reason I'm standing here, and realizing I can't undo it. I can only face it. He straightened his back, shifting from confession to defiance. I'm not here to dodge my past. I've lived with it. I've paid for it in ways no sentencing guideline could measure. I've been humbled, stripped of pride, forced to stare in the mirror at a stranger and fight like hell to find the man I want to become. A muffled sob cracked the silence, barely audible, but it struck the room like thunder. His eyes flickered toward the sound, then back to the bench. This isn't me begging for a pass. This is me asking for a path to redemption, to rebuilding something out of the years I still have. His knuckles whitened on the podium. I've seen what happens when men believe they are beyond saving. I refuse to be one of them. And if you give me the chance, I'll prove that this— He swept a hand toward the cameras, the jury box, the entire stage— is not the end of my story. The tension thickened, a fragile thread pulled tighter with each passing second. The judge's expression never wavered, but the air had shifted. Diddy's voice deepened, carrying the edge of a man teetering between desperation and defiance. People see me as a headline, a caricature. But no headline tells you what it's like to wake every morning to a steel door slamming shut, to measure your life in how many times it opens. No article captures the silence that gnaws at you when everything you once thought defined you has been stripped away. His breath hitched, then steadied. I've had nights where I wanted to give up, where I wondered if this fight was worth it. But then I hear the voices of the people I failed, my kids, my family, those who once believed in me, and I know quitting would prove every doubt right. His eyes locked with the judge's, unwavering, burning with resolve. I'm not here to charm you. I'm not here to spin a story. I'm here to stand in my truth. I have made mistakes I'll regret until my last breath. But redemption isn't won with promises. It's owned. And if there's anything I have left, it's the will to earn it. The cameras clicked like gunfire, freezing the moment, but the room itself seemed suspended in time. Diddy leaned closer to the microphone, his words sharp, deliberate. You have the power to end my story today, Your Honor, or you can give me the chance to write another ending, one that proves a man can rise, that he can be better, that he can outlive his worst days. For a heartbeat, the air vanished from the room. All eyes turned to the bench. The judge remained still, fortress-like. Diddy's chest rose and fell with the weight of every word he'd spoken. His voice trembled now, heavy with exhaustion and defiance. You think I came here to play the victim? No. I came here because I refuse to accept the man the world already decided I am. You can bury me under a sentence so deep my name fade before I see the sky again. But you can't take away this moment, the moment I stand here, unflinching, speaking my truth to your face. His knuckles dug into the podium until his hands shook, his body bent forward, his eyes locked in the unyielding stare of the judge who still hadn't moved. I know my past is a storm. I know there's chaos in every headline that's followed me. But I'm asking you, just once, to look past the noise. Look at the man standing here now. The father, the son, the human being. Not just a shadow of his mistakes. A tremor slipped into his voice, impossible to disguise. His eyes searched the room, the jury, the press, the strangers in the gallery, as if begging for even one pair that still believed in him. If this is my last chance, if these are the last words anyone hears before you close that door, let me make them plain. I want my life back. I want the chance to prove I'm not beyond saving. A chair creaked in the back row, sharp as breaking glass. The judge's hand twitched once against the armrest. For a long, suffocating moment, the only sound was a hammer of heartbeats in the stillness. Then, at last, he moved. Slowly, deliberately, the judge leaned forward, elbows pressed against the bench. The air thickened, as if even the walls were holding their breath. Diddy locked on him, desperate for mercy, for anything. The judge's hand rose toward the gavel, then froze. He stood. The scrape of wood against the floor echoed like a gunshot. Murmurs rippled through the room as he stepped down from the bench, silent, unreadable. Your Honor, please. The words cracked from Diddy's throat, raw and trembling. But the judge never looked at him. He walked past the attorneys, past the clerk, past the bailiff, and vanished through the side door. The hollow slam landed like a verdict all its own. Diddy's knees nearly buckled. His hand gripped the podium to keep from falling. Was it dismissal? Condemnation? Punishment? Or worse, a refusal to give him even the dignity of an answer? The uncertainty struck harder than any sentence. And then the whispers began. A ripple, spreading from the press bench to back rows. What happens now? The gallery buzzed. Cameras clicked like insects feeding on the silence. The bailiff's hand steadied on the podium, not to restrain, just ready. Diddy's lips parted. His voice barely rose above a whisper. So, that's it. A defense attorney leaned close, words lost beneath the tide of murmurs. Some swore the walkout meant the verdict was already sealed. Others whispered it was a tactic, a cruelty meant to let him stew in the uncertainty before the hammer fell. Then the side door opened again. Not the judge, a clerk. She placed a stack of papers on the bench without glancing at him, then exited just as quickly. Somehow, that small, meaningless action twisted the tension even tighter. Diddy straightened. For the first time, he understood this wasn't just about prison or freedom. This was about memory, about how the world would write this day into history. And right now, that memory was of a man left standing alone in a courtroom, begging for an answer that never came. The bailiff finally called a recess. Reporters bolted for the exits, phones buzzing with breaking alerts. The headline would be brutal, the images unforgiving. Diddy didn't move. He stood frozen as the sound of footsteps drained away into a silence that cut deeper than judgment itself. Somewhere beyond the walls came the muffled clang of a heavy lock sliding into place. And in that moment, Diddy knew the silence had spoken louder than any verdict ever could.